Greetings. If you've lived it, you can lead with it. In this episode, we talk about how publishing your story builds not just your brand, but your authority. So let's get into it, ma'am. How do you enunciate your name?
My name is Jori O'Neale.
I love that. That's a beautiful name. I was just sharing offline that when I see that, um, a name that starts with a J, I often wonder if it's a H sound or a Y sound. So we're talking about stories and storytelling. So tell us the story behind your name.
So my mom has been an educator for the last 45 years, and she had a student, an Irish student named Marjorie, and everyone called her Jory for short. And so when she found out she was pregnant with me, she decided to name me after her favorite student. So I never met this woman, but if you out there, Marjorie, appreciate you, boo. Appreciate you for being such a dope child that I get to be named after you. So
Because so is Jory short for Marjorie or is it?
no, my full government name is Jory. Like it's not short, it's not long, it's just Jory.
I love
That's
that.
it.
I love that. Well, Miss Jory, you are such a vibe. And I want to know how you show up in the world.
That's an interesting question. I'm gonna ask you to elaborate. Can you give me a couple more words to dig deep into that one? How do I show up into the world? Is this from my perspective and vantage point?
Yeah, it's all about you, boo.
Okay. I want to say I believe I show up in the world in honesty. Probably one of the most blunt individuals folks usually meet. I'm an oversharer. So if there's something on my mind, it's gonna come out my mouth more than likely. So I think for me, I want to show up as an honest truth teller. Um, I am humorous, and so I try to balance because sometimes my humor is not, it's a mask, right? Like I am deflecting or I am trying to minimize my feelings or maybe not get grounded enough to figure out how I do feel, right? And so trying to skirt around the subject and content. So I want to say I show up in the world in as much truth as I possibly can, with as much honesty as I possibly can. And I know this is a buzzword right now, but I really feel like I make every effort to embody authenticity. Right,
Mm.
like I am what I am. I is what it is, and you're gonna get what you're gonna get. And
And I ain't what I ain't.
yeah, I ain't what I ain't. That's right. You got that right.
I love your energy. I feel like we could like definitely be like the same coin. When I first saw you and heard you and saw how you show up, it looked just like I was looking in the mirror.
Mm.
I was
Ain't
like,
that quirky?
yes, it's beautiful,
Mm.
beautifully quirky to recognize yourself and see what that looks like out in the world because it's hard to like see yourself. I feel like fully like how other people experience you. And I feel like people experience me like I experienced you.
Mm.
And I love that because I exactly how you described yourself is how I feel. I don't know if I'm probably a lot more vulnerable than I used to be.
Mm.
So very little deflection because if it is, I probably call it out
Mm.
for the most part because I'm one of them. I want to scratch at the scab. Like, what's going on? What's in there? Like, what's happening? Like, what are you doing? So I do a lot of uh self-reflection
Introspection.
and introspection. Yes,
Nice.
absolutely. Absolutely. So I have another question for you, dog.
I love it. Let's bring it. Let's do it.
What has the disruptor, because you know I'm known as the disruptor coach. We ain't playing up in here. Um, what has a disruptor in you had to disrupt?
Oh, the publishing industry. I am 10-time published author, 2-time best-selling author. I'm relaunching my very first book, History Determines Her Story, later this month. Super excited about that. But the publishing industry is what I want to disrupt. There has been, and I've been in different forums and different writing communities, and people that fought me tooth and nail to this on this issue. I'm like writing a book, becoming a published author, right? 81% of Americans want to become published authors. They want to write a book, right? They want the thing. Only 3% ever actually finish their manuscript, and 1 to 2% become published. So
Mm.
we're talking about such a large, just it's such. My brain hurts trying to figure out like what is why is there such a gap? Why is there such a gap? And for me, I want to turn those numbers upside down.
Mm.
Like if 81% of Americans want to write a book, then 81% of Americans should write a book.
Absolutely.
Period. And so for me, the disruption that I want to cause is in the publishing industry in terms of making it accessible. And part of that is creating different partnerships, joining forces with other publishing companies who are trying to do the same thing that I'm trying to do. I have experienced self-publishing and all of its lack of glory, right? Like you don't know what you don't know, and printing books and getting the final copy and things are messed up, and your table of contents has the same number multiple times, and I've experienced what it feels like to be published professionally
Mm.
where you get that book, right? Like you see these joints behind me, like when you get the book and you're like, oh, that's nice. Oh, like, hey, everybody, look what I did, right? Versus when you might self-publish and you're like, hey, I wrote a book. Where is it? It's on Amazon. You go over there, like you can go over there and go check it out. It's but you don't have to right now. I think when you have a published product that you are proud of, you
Yeah.
have no problem talking about it. You have no problem sharing it with people. You have no problem even telling people that you're writing the book. I
Right.
help so many authors and they're like, "Oh, I'm not going to say anything to this publisher." I'm like, "So you don't want to sell it?" Is that because that's what I hear you saying. You don't want to
We're
sell, like why are we waiting? But
waiting for it.
the way the publishing industry is right now, it is it is a bit elitist because in order for you to create quality work, you have to invest, whether it's time, whether it's skill set, you figuring it out on your own, whether it's editing, whether it's book coaching, whether it's ghostwriting, like you have to invest. And folks who are trying to get a traditional publishing deal, right? Like they want to go to top five or they want to advance and the royalties and all that. You have to build such a large following, or you
Mm.
have to have such a large email list, or you have to have some proof that you're going to be a great return on investment for
Shit.
this company. And a
Yeah.
lot of people don't understand that. And so they write and they write and then they pitch and they pitch and they just face rejection after rejection. And so I want to change that. If you've written a book and then it's not the greatest, like come holler. Let me help you. Like I've been storytelling. I counted. I was like, I've been storytelling over 30 years. I know I don't look 30. Praise God, black don't crack. But I've been storytelling for quite some time. I think in terms of what does it look like to disrupt the publishing industry, I think first it looks like letting people know that you have access to professionals who will
Mm.
help you, and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. It won't cost two kidneys. You don't have to sell your house. You don't have to take a lien. You don't, right? You don't have to do those things. But you have to like be curious enough to figure out what it is. Where is it? And so yeah, I want to disrupt the publishing industry. I think that there are a lot of stories of people who look like us, right? Black and brown stories that do not get the exposure that they need. They do not get the platforms that they should have. They do not get the attention that they deserve. And
I love.
so that's my goal. I want to disrupt the publishing industry and help as many stories, good stories, right? Because you can put anything on KDP nowadays, but I want good stories, stories that reflect us, stories that help others see themselves in those pages, and see a good version of themselves, right? Not the normal, oh, poor, destitute. Like, yeah, that might be some of our stories. Like, some of that was my story, right? It was my origin story. But the story that I want to share now is, you know what? There's hope on the other side of all that negativity. Like, there's abundance, and it's yours. Not, it will be yours. It's yours right now. You got to go get it, right? And so, I really want to just turn the publishing industry upside down.
I believe you will. I'm curious. So when I ask about the disruptor in you, that's actively what you're doing. What led you to want to be on a journey of publishing? How did the storytelling take shape? What did you personally have to disrupt in you
Hmm.
to get here?
Such a good question, Coach Selina. Such a good question. Um, I think from a young child, storytelling saved my life. When I say that, I mean getting lost and enveloped in stories. And I'm not just talking about like good books. I mean, like I would stay up really late watching Nick at Night, right? Finding myself lost in Mary Tyler Moore and Taxi and, All in the Family. And I would get lost in these stories because it felt safer than my actual reality. Right. And so that just continued as I grew older. I started falling in love with books. I started falling in love with rap and rhyming because it was beautiful storytelling over melodic beats. Like, and so I started rapping, and then we got into doing comedy because now I was able to tell my story and turn all these painful moments from my childhood into these funny quips that everybody could relate to, regardless of your background and your demographic. And so it was a gradual increase of, okay, I've told stories here and I've found success. Let me try this other thing. I've told stories here and found success. So when it got to the writing part, I think on my bucket list from 8 years old, it was always like, I'm going to write a book one day, right? I'm
Yeah.
going to write a book. And I was 38 when I published my first book. And I was like, okay, I did it, but like, now what we supposed to do, right? Like, because you don't know what you don't know. And so I would join these different communities and I would seek writing workshops. And, you know, I kept finding that I was the minority in a lot of these spaces. And
Hmm.
I grew up South Side Chicago, went to predominantly Black schools, and then I got to St. John's, and it was a culture shock because I was like one of maybe 4 or 5 Black children in these classrooms. And I was like, this is weird. Like, I went from everyone looked like me to, oh, there's one of us. Like, and so it felt weird. It felt weird. It felt weird. Because like, you don't know what you don't know. So being in those spaces, I started noticing, like, how did I show up in those spaces? Was I me? Was I a different version of me? Right? Was I um code switching to a whole nother level? Right? Was I assimilating? Like, where did Jori start and where did she stop?
Hmm.
And
Where,
so,
where did you?
well, I didn't know for a while until I want to say probably 25 when I started going to therapy. And
Hmm.
I started reflecting on, who am I? What do I like? And so now, mind you, prior to this, like, I had become a Christian, started following the Lord, super involved in church, and started journaling, started reading the Bible, and finding all these beautiful stories of the grace and the hope and the redemptive qualities of Christ. And I found myself, like, I found my stories in those stories. But
Absolutely.
therapy did something different. Therapy was like, all right, we're not going to find ourselves in all these other things and all these other places. We're going to look inside and we're going to find who you are. And then
Sure.
once we figure that out, then we're going to be able to make a choice. We're going to have the power to say, hey, this is who I am and this is how I choose to show up. And it has to be okay with me first. I can say, oh, I don't care what you think about, okay, well, do I care? Because is it okay with me that I show up like this? And so that's where a lot of that began. And I went to therapy for like 5 years. And so during the time that I was in therapy, I, I don't feel like, and I told her this, and it's probably not the best thing you should tell your therapist. I don't feel like she helped me. I just needed space. Like I needed that consistent, dedicated time where
Compact.
it was just me. I was focused on me. I wasn't focused on how I can help other people. Wasn't focused on, oh, this is going to be amazing Bible study, right? Because I went to school for theology. My goal and intention was to become a minister, like lead a church, all the things. Those
Yeah.
things didn't happen. I became an ordained minister, but it was only to help like marry my friend in Italy. Like it wasn't it's like I want to do the church thing. Um, and so, but that was God because he knew what he was calling me into. But I found who I was. And once I found out who Jori was, I said, huh, so I don't like these things. I
Right.
don't want to do these things.
Right.
I feel, you know what? And so then I started making different decisions. Prior to that, I had never been able to stay at a job longer than 3 years. I wouldn't
Mhm.
get fired. I would just leave. Like after 3 years, it was really, it felt like an itch. Like, oh no, this is too much. It's overwhelming. And so when I was dating my husband now, but I was dating my boyfriend at the time, I was like, I need to go fix this. 3 years, we can be like, this guy's still here.
Right. What are you doing here?
Right? So I went to therapy because I was like, well, we got to fix this. We got to figure out why we keep doing this. And a lot of it, abandonment issues and right. So a lot of that stuff did come out. I got diagnosed with OCD and ADHD. I was like, oh, I kind of figured that, but thanks for the diagnosis, doc. Like, what we doing about it? She's like, oh, just keep journaling. Yeah, no drugs. Okay, cool. But
Right.
I once I found me in what I liked, what I didn't like, I said, okay, well, what do I want? And so I wanted a family. I did want a family. I think I was afraid to acknowledge that or admit that for a long time, but I did want a family. And God sent me a guy who wanted a family too. And I was like, you know what? Okay, let's do it. But I didn't want to be an absentee parent. I didn't want to be married to my job and my kids not see me. So after I had already graduated college and started working in social services,
Yeah.
I went back to school. I got my master's in education and I became a teacher. And I did that for 14 years. And I just left in January because I decided again, I said, you know what? Do I still want this? Is this lifestyle still serving me? I did it so that I could have children. I can be home with them. We had the same schedule, but my youngest is 6. I said, everybody's in school. Do I still need to do this?
Right.
So we out. Let's go do something else. So now we do something else. And so I went fully into the business of helping people through ghostwriting and publishing services. So I've been doing this for 3 years, and now I'm doing it full time, and God is blessing it. So I don't remember what your initial question was, but how did I get into the publishing? That's how I got into the publishing. I noticed when I was doing comedy, this is during COVID. I had started doing comedy in like 2007, and then right around 2020, a friend of mine, she challenged me. She was like, "Hey, you are a stand-up comic, and people are really hurting right now."
Yeah.
She's like, you can probably turn a profit from selling funny. And I was like, selling funny? She's like, yes, funny right now is healing. And there's nothing new on television. Like all the studios are closed. And so I started selling like comedy shows on Zoom. Like I would pop up on Zoom and I would charge people money to come. And I did that for like 5 months. And then I started doing open air shows in like backyards and like the open spaces of people's restaurants. I did that for like 2 years. And then I got picked up by a streaming platform. So my comedy show is on Empower Network, right? And so
Yeah.
once that happened, then I get a knock. Hey, can you host this award show? So I realized that after I published my comedy show,
Mm-hmm.
the door opened for me to speak on larger stages.
I
So I
love that.
said, interesting. I wonder if this works with books. So started a podcast, 2022. I took those first 6 episodes of that podcast and I turned it into a book.
Ooh,
And
what's
after
the
that,
name of the podcast?
30 minutes of power.
Mm,
Yes.
mm.
Our tagline is be an empowered person using your power to empower others.
I love that. I
God
love
has
that.
given us all specific gifts, talents, and purpose. And so you figure out what your power is. Don't be selfish. Go ahead and give that away to someone else. And when you do that, that'll turn on their switch and then they'll go do it. And then we'll just make an entire planet of people who are actually like looking to serve one another versus how can I get. So that's a segue. In terms of the publishing, once I published my first book, I got asked to speak at a Women's Day. I'd never been asked to speak at a Women's Day. To mind you, I've been in churches like almost 20 years at this point. I'm like, nobody asked me to speak on stage. You publish a book. Hey, can you speak? Sure, I can speak. Of course because I love to speak. But it wasn't comedy, right? I had been put in this little box. Oh, that's funny. She's funny. That's Jori. She's over there. And so now the book, oh, you can speak now. Oh, yeah, of course I can speak. I can always speak. You just never gave me a chance, right? And
Now,
so,
my understanding, a book does a couple of things. It's almost like your business card, and it establishes kind of your credibility or
mhm,
expertise. Is that, would you say that's accurate?
absolutely, absolutely. I think if you do the book right, and so that's the caveat. If you do the book right, like I said, you can put anything you want to on KDP as long as it's 72 pages long. You can put whatever you want to up there.
Used to be 72 pages.
Yeah, but if you want it to open doors, to give you opportunities, to establish that you are the go-to person for this, it needs to be done well.
Mm.
And so I did my book. It was not done great. It was done all right. Stories is dope.
Stories are dope. So what's the name of the book? What was your first book?
History determines her story. Let me grab yep, right here. Hold on. Oh, no, that's a different one. There we go.
Because that was the first 6 episodes. Ooh, that's powerful.
Like
Mm.
that. That's nice. Yeah.
Now, is this the one I believe I was on LinkedIn and you were doing a poll?
Yes. So I am actually relaunching this book because this book, like I said, the stories, amazing stories, but it is not professionally done on the inside. And so that credibility piece, when someone goes to pick up your book, the first thing that they're looking at is what is the cover? What's the title? If they like both of those, second place they're going to go to, back of the book. All
Right.
right, let me find out what this book's about. Let me find out who wrote it. Oh, okay, Black girl, okay. And then they'll flip and they'll go through and they'll look. And if it look crazy, they not buying it. They're not, right? So my font for this is like, I think I was 11 and Arial, like all the bad things that you should never do in any sort of devotional memoir or biography. You don't have
Mhm.
to print that small. Who's reading that?
Mhm.
With a magnifying glass? No, don't do that. So there were things about the book, even after, right? I went to all these classes, went to all these courses.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. I wasn't a professional publisher, but you see these books, that's professionally published.
More than enough.
Yes,
Be
ma'am.
She knew Jesus. Is that what that
Before
says?
she knew Jesus. Yes, ma'am.
Ashe. What did you, which book is your favorite?
How to have a revolutionary walk with God.
Why?
Because of the impact that it had even before it was published.
Tell us more.
So this book was not professionally edited.
Hmm.
How to have a revolutionary walk with God was, because again, you don't know what you don't know. So second book, I say, let me get some help with this. Let me pay someone. Let me make
Hmm.
sure this is good. So I paid to have it edited. And the editor, she was like, okay, let me get the manuscript. Let me see what's up. She got it. And then I didn't hear from her for a minute. And I was like, you stole my book. Like, what you like? What you do with my book? Like, where's my book? And she told me, she's like, I don't like you. And I was like, what? Kind of unprofessional. This is. And she was like, I was editing your book, and the Lord convicted me. And I called my family,
Mm.
and I reconciled with them, and I started going back to church.
That's transformation.
And again, before it was even published, this was the editor. I said, if it's doing that while it's a little janky, like run on sentences, right? Poor spacing, the pacing is off. I'm like, what amazing, miraculous, like what can this do when it's professional? And so that's my favorite book. I have another one called How to Spot a Fool, which is that is more of my introspection of this is my comedy book. I was like, you can't be a comedian and not have a comedy book. You just have one comedy book. You got to
Yes.
have one. So
Yes.
How to Spot a Fool is my comedy book. It's me telling the stories of how I grew up in Chicago and the family interactions and the dynamics. And I take the entire book of Proverbs and I insert it into my life. So the
Mm.
whole book is looked at through the lens of what does it mean to be a fool in God's eyes?
I love this girl. Oh
What
my.
is foolishness? And for me, there's a little twist at the end of the book, but that's probably one of the most fun books I've written. I say fun. But yeah, How to Have a Revolutionary Walk with God, hands down. Um, that book was birthed from the Women's Day that I spoke at. The
Right.
theme was revolution. And so I took that talk and I turned it into a book. Do you see what I'm doing here?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Everything that you do
Yes.
involves writing. It involves storytelling. It involves a framework. Each of those things can be turned into a book. I did a podcast series with a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
and she's a child therapist, and we were talking about how there's such this just turmoil between parents and teens and understanding one another, and it generational gap, a conversation, but it's also this space of this young person believes that their parent is trying to usurp their power and their autonomy, and the parent is like, no, I am trying to protect you, and I don't know how to do that properly, so I'm either going to regurgitate the trash that was done to me,
Yes.
or I'm going to try to stay silent but suffer inside because I see all the dumb things that you're doing. And so after the podcast series, I wrote this book, Shifting Mindsets, a
Um,
guide for parents and teens, right? But you write the
yeah.
workshop, you write the speech, you write the podcast, you write the course,
Right.
and you turn it into a book.
Yes. I love that. I love that. This is so freaking powerful. You're giving everyone the blueprint. And I can see, I'm I want to know how 30 minutes of power was born because you it doesn't take all day, right? I have walked in bathrooms and transforms people's lives in minutes. So I'm very curious how 30 minutes of power came to be and what transpired.
So I tore my ACL in 2021
Mm.
at work, coaching volleyball. So I'm a former phys ed and health teacher, advisor. And so I was opting whether I was going to have surgery or not. And I was like, if I'm going to have surgery, I don't want it to play with my money. It's October. If I do it now, I'm going to be out and then it's going to be Christmas. And I was like, so you know what? I'm just going to go to physical therapy. I'm going to get strong. And then I'll have the surgery closer to Christmas where I'm getting paid to be home already for those weeks.
Right.
So I had the surgery. And after I had the surgery, I was no good. I battled and struggled my entire life with depression, on and off. And so not being able to walk. Now I'm a sports head, like gym rat. Like, let's go lift, let's go climb, let's go run, let's go kick, let's go throw. So to not be able to independently like go to the kitchen and grab myself a plate, like
Yeah.
uh, that the identity was like, who are you? What you've been known as this thing, and now you're not that. And God is so gracious because each time that I become comfortable and complacent in one identity, He's like, nah, let me help you. And sometimes His help doesn't seem so helpful.
I know, right? Like, what are you doing?
Seem helpful in a moment. And so I'm
Just
laying in the,
hold it on.
I know. I'm post surgery. I'm feeling sorry for myself. I'm laying in the bed crying, and
Mhm.
I'm like, God, why you did this?
Right.
Like, what did I like? I do something wrong? Like, you don't like me no more? Like, why is it so hard? And I audibly hear, get up. And I'm like, first off, we we got a whole like hip brace from our ankle to our hip. What you mean get up, bro? What you mean? I was like, this must
Mhm.
be the devil. I'm be tempted. What is this? It's gave me God.
You
Uh,
playing?
this is, do you want to get well? I hear, do you want to get well? I'm home by myself. Do you want to get well? Yes. Then get up, take up your mat and follow me. Like I hear these words and I'm like, this is a joke. Somebody's playing with me. And so I get up and I go to the next room and I clear out my kids' playroom and I
Mhm.
turn it into my sanctuary. And this is where the Lord meets with me every day for months at 3:30 in the morning,
Love.
every day. And it was during those times that He started depositing downloads. And so I just started writing feverishly. Like it got to a point where I couldn't write fast enough. So I started just like doing voice to text on my phone, like in the
Yes.
Google Notes. I'm like,
Man,
this is coming too fast. I can't,
right.
I can't type fast enough. Those notes I started sharing with a friend, Nicole, my co-host for the podcast. And
Hmm.
she's like, hey, I think we should go live. And I was like, all right. So we started going live on Facebook. She's like, I think we should, I think we should start doing Zoom, like circles, sister circles. I said, okay, cool. So every time she say, I think we should, I'm like, all right, let's do it. So we started
Right.
doing sister circles and the circles get too big. And I'm like, okay, well, what are we supposed to do now? She's like, oh, they asking for the recordings. I'm like, sending no hour recording on a Zoom? Like, you know how much memory that is? It's like, I'm not doing that. So she was like, what if we turn it into a podcast? And I said, huh, do we know how to do a podcast? It's like, can't be that difficult. I was like, okay, let's
Yes.
do it. So we started figuring out how do you record this. I think I had taken my comedy shows and I had put it on I forget, a Podbean or something. I put it on a platform, my comedy shows, and I was like, I want to do it with this, but I think I should try something else. And so I think I had just heard about Anchor on Spotify. And so I
Yeah.
was like, okay, cool. Let me try this. So I put it on there and people were listening to it and they were like, we like this. When's the next episode coming? And so I took one of the 6-part series and I turned it into the first 6 episodes of the podcast. Like you can go back, the first 6 episodes of the podcast. There's no intro song, there's no outro, there's no music. It's just like, hey, ladies, thanks for coming.
Right.
Coming to the word of God.
I love that.
So those 6 episodes were the
Yeah,
six episodes
that's
that I
right.
used to turn into my book. So I'm I'm always working smarter, not harder type of woman. So I was like, what can I repurpose this to become?
Mhm.
What can I repurpose this to become? Like, if this was impactful to this one person in this one way, as a teacher, I'm always like, okay, differentiated instruction. How can
Mm.
I create multiple points of entry for the same information? All
Right.
right, it's audio. Great. Now let me figure out how to share the video. So we took the audio only, and then we start putting the Zoom videos on YouTube. Okay, so now we have video, we have audio. I was like, but there's people who like ebook things. I was like, all right, let's make it into an ebook. Made it to an ebook. And then there's people who are like, oh, I like the physical book. So then I was like, all right, let's do a physical book. And so I did attempt to do an audiobook of it. It did not go well.
But you have an
um,
amazing voice.
because at the time, the only time that I had to record was like at 4 in the morning before everybody got up. And so I don't sound like this at 4 in the morning. This is post water, post coffee. This is 4 in the morning. I think I might sound like a frog. I just might sound like a frog. Someone called me, I think at 6 in the morning one time. One of the people that I'm working with in a publishing company, and this what I mean when I say oversharing. She called and I answered the phone, and she was like, "Did you just wake up?" I said, "Yeah." She's like, "Girl, you sound like your breath stink." It's like, what?
That's the comedian in you too. I see you.
I was like, what? Who says that? I was like, and I'm stealing it. It's like, I don't
Right?
know who says that, but now I do. So I
And you
was
know,
like,
we think it anyway. We think it anyway. And I'm like, I've already reconciled with God that, hey, you know I cuss in my head. So let me just not pretend. Let
so
me
yeah,
not pretend.
so that's how 30 Minutes of Power started. And I wanted to call it Women's Business and Bible Podcast.
Wow. Mhm.
Yeah. So my co-host, she was like, the Lord woke me up. You know how you be waking up at 3:30 in the morning? The Lord woke me up. Maybe not as early, but he woke me up, and he was like 30 minutes of power. So that's what he told us we have to call it, 30 minutes of power. And I was like, I do not like that name. I've created thumbnails, I've created like all this marketing material. She was like,
Be
well,
professional, right?
she's like, well, you're not the only one to hear from the Lord. The Lord told me 30 minutes of power. And I was like, fine. Ugh. And for 3 years, 113 episodes later, we are 30 minutes of power. So
Yes, in more ways than one. In more ways than one. This is so yummy, girl. This is so good. Let me just double check because I get so excited and I forget to see if the people are listening. So let's see what's going on. Let's just double check if anybody's out there and y'all tapped in. Let us know if you have any questions. This is so good. Jori, you've said a whole word and a third. And you've been up here preaching and all the things. Tell the people where they can find you, what you got going on, what offers you have. Like, give us all of the tea
uh,
and coffee for those that drink coffee.
yeah, I mean, you know what? I'm a tea drinker too myself sometimes. When I'm going through my fast. But yeah, so you can find me on all social medias, literally all LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, literally at Jori O'Neale, JORIONEALE. It's the same handle across all platforms. Again, like I said, I have ADHD. I don't have time to be trying to remember what my stuff is. Like, I know my name. So it's gonna be my name. My email, my name. Just put my name at Gmail. Just you want to get at me, you know my name, you know how I spell my name. That's how you want to get at me. Just like that. Even my website is jorioneale.com. I try to make this super simple, but right now, honestly, the biggest thing that I have to offer you is a book call, 15-minute chat. If you've ever considered writing your book, get on my calendar. Please get on my calendar. If I can't help you, I guarantee you I have resources that will help put you on the right path. But
Right.
the best thing I can offer you, get on my calendar. Just go to jorioneale.com, schedule a book call, talk, like you ain't even got to go through the whole website. Just as soon as you get there, is book a call. Just push the button, book a call, get on my calendar. And it's free. So I'm not asking for no money. 15 minutes free. I I just want to help. Like I said, there's only one way that I know how to disrupt things, and that's to get myself right in the middle of it. So I've done self-publishing, I've done hybrid publishing, I've done traditional publishing. Um, and at the end of the day, honestly, like you can't do it alone. You need help. I needed help.
Mhm.
Everybody need help. So I'm here to help and I want to help. So JoriO'Neale.com, get on my calendar.
Now,
I
all the beautiful books you've written, where do they find the books?
On my website, JoriO'Neale.com, and you push the bookstore. Go buy my books. Yeah, listen, I told you, I keep it simple. JoriO'Neale.com for everything. You want to find me, you want to reach out to me, you want to get in contact with me, Jori O'Neale at all the places, YouTube, Facebook. The place I hang out the most, I'll probably say LinkedIn, honestly,
Mhm.
lately, LinkedIn and IG, those two places and spaces. But outside of that, just go to my website, get on my calendar. I love to chat with you. Coach Selina, I appreciate you. This has been fun. I never know what's gonna happen when I jump on these podcasts, but it's always a good time. And
It is, it
I
is.
felt your energy when I met you in Brooklyn, and so it's good. It's good to reconnect in this way, and I look forward to interfacing with you again
I-
soon in the future.
but we're not done quite yet. I've got
Okay.
two more questions for you because
Mm.
it's interesting that you've been saying that you grew up in Chicago because you got this whole New York vibe. Like when you meet you, where'd that come from?
So I'm originally from Chicago, born and raised. And at 18, I decided that I no longer wanted to be in Chicago anymore. And so I forged papers to go to St. John's. And that's where I ended up. My parents did not want me to leave home. My dad was very adamant about me going to New York, and he wouldn't sign the papers. So I forced a signature. And yeah, I had a full ride.
I love that for you.
So I was like, there's no reason for me to not go. Like God opened up a door for me to go and not need to be in like financial distress. So why y'all blocking my blessing? That don't make sense.
Hmm.
So I left. And my mom, she knew her daughter. She's like, listen, you want what you want, and you gonna go get it. So I ain't about to be on the poop list. So she helped me get to New York. Literally, she drove me 12 hours straight, got me into my dorm, kissed me, jumped back in the car, and drove 12 hours back. No stopping, no overnight, nothing. My mom has been she's been my ride or die. And so it's been interesting because again, my mom's been an educator for 45 years and she has this deep love of books and stories. And so whenever I write a book, she's like, make sure you do an ebook. You know how I love reading on my phone, girl. So every book that I do, I'm like, I got you. Yes, ma'am. You will get an ebook to make this easier for you. So
That's interesting. My mother's 78 and she can be lost in a book and never hear anything. And we got her this really the biggest iPad that you can get. The thing is huge. And so she reads all of her books now and that, but she likes those 15th, 16th century period books. But
my girl.
yeah, she's an encyclopedia.
I
She's
love
so
that.
funny.
I
Um,
love that.
I
So
love
yeah,
that.
I've been in New York since 2021.
Yeah. Only 20, wow. But people think you're from New York though, I bet,
I
right?
think people get confused about where I'm from because I say things like ma'am and please and thank
Yeah.
you. So
Yeah.
we,
Me too.
we thought you was from Queens, but
We don't do all that.
we don't be mamming and sirring people. What you southern? Like yeah, I say yeah, actually I am. My people from Arkansas. Yeah, you got southern twang. Thank you. I appreciate it.
But you have such a tapestry of life and have been on an amazing journey to bring you here today. What would you recommend that was significant in your life? It could have been a podcast, a book. What tools or resources for those that are out there are listening would you recommend for them that you use that helped you on your journey?
I would say four books. Barbara Winter's How to Make a Living Without a Job.
Mm,
Um, when I was fiddling around with the idea of entrepreneurship, that's one of the first books I read to kind of start germinating some ideas about what I could do.
I love that. And it's a woman's book. A
Oh yeah,
woman, I love that. Why did that resonate with you?
because she wasn't special. Like she was not a Harvard grad, she was not a business student. She was a mom who got divorced, had to figure it out, and figured it out. And I think struggle is the mother of all invention. So she
Hmm.
was struggling to take care of her daughter, and she was like, I need a job where I can be home and be secure financially. So there
Mm.
was not one for her, so she created one. And
Oh,
then she created another one. And then she started teaching other women how to create their own way. And so I think the empowerment part for me was what stuck out most in the book. That once she figured out the blueprint for herself, she didn't keep it to herself. She was like, hey, come here. And she started doing actual like courses. Like
hmm.
one of the main things that gave her so much financial influx was creating these and she was doing in-person courses. This was before like online courses. She's literally like pulling up to a library and got it packed out because
Right,
every woman in the town was like, oh, you make your own money, you don't got no man, oh girl, let me find out how you did that, right?
right.
And so yeah, that's one of the first places I would go. Somebody's like, I'm looking for a change, even if it's just like a side hustle. Like if you're looking for a change, I'll probably start there. um, the next book, Multiply Your God-Given Potential, John Bevere. Um, I read that right after I had my surgery on my ACL.
Mm,
Um, and it gave me such a good foundation in terms of looking at all of the life experiences I had had and seeing God's footprint, right? Seeing his hand through all of those spaces and being able to identify them and then stitch them together and then say, okay, well, I have this skill set. How do I transfer these skills into this other space?
that's
Um,
read his wife's book. I have not read any of his books.
I love me some John Bevere. Pause app. Pause app is dope. That is a great, great app. Daily devotionals. They have mantras. He teaches people how to become modern day mystics. It's a game changer for real. He does this beautiful blend and fusion of Buddhist practices and Christianity, and it's healing. It's inspirational. It reduces the cognitive load because he's already kind of front loading the prayers and the scriptures, so you don't even have to think about it. He's introducing you to mantras, right? It's beautiful. James Clear, Atomic Habits, that helped me figure out like what time of day is the best time for me to do certain things, help me create a structure and a flow and really like learn myself and reduce the habits that were no longer serving me and then pick up these ones that have helped me progress and really grow. I would say the last book I could recommend. I mean, you probably read it. I know I read it. But We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rodgers. I'm just saying. That book was like, I could be a millionaire. Nobody told me. I didn't know. So I read that book and then I Googled her, started listening to her podcast, did the Make Money Moves challenge, joined the mastermind. Like I was like, all right, I could be a millionaire. Shoo, you ain't
That's
said
it.
nothing but a word. Let's do it.
Exactly. And that's what brought us together. We're
Yes,
in
ma'am.
a seven mastermind together. This has been so yummy. I have one final question for you. I like to flip the mic and ask if you have any questions for me.
Oh, yes. Girl, you know I have a podcast, so I've been waiting. I've been waiting. Um, I want to know where your motivation comes from. When as entrepreneurs, I know it's not always yellow brick road, roses growing. Where does your motivation come from to continue to be the disruptor for other women when you may feel like you're being disrupted?
Yeah, for sure. That's a real rich question. I love this question. I'm a warrior, WARRIOR, right? And I've been that way my whole life. And when I went through some of the most traumatic things in my life, one of them that I believe was the most traumatic is that I became disconnected from myself and I didn't know who I was. I'm the most valuable thing to me, right? But I had been doing free labor, overgiving, people pleasing, codependency, abandonment issues, you name them. I was it. I didn't know that at the time. Grief. I was widowed at 23. I've been married 3 times. I left the house at 16. Actually, I got sent to live with my grandparents at 13. I got married at 16 to get out of my grandparents' house. And we were married for 4 years. And then I would meet my second husband, who was a Baptist minister, treated me like a queen. We got married. I think we dated for about maybe 2 years or so. We got married, and we were only married for 7 months. He died 8 days before my 24th birthday. So I've lived at least 4 lives. And then once he died, we were trying to get pregnant. I didn't get pregnant by my husband, but I got pregnant about 6 months later by a boy, man. But that was not my plan. So there was just so many things that happened that I was just going through life one thing right after the other. And I was not going to have the baby. Then I had the baby because the Lord had other plans, um, clearly. And it's the best thing that ever happened to me because someone's mother who I didn't believe that I was capable. And then I became his mother. My name was Richard's mom. So that was a whole nother life. And then when I went back to maternity leave, I would meet my third husband on the job. Many, many, many years later, in 2015, we reconnected and got married. And in that marriage, it took so much out of me. Became a caregiver. I was dealing with narcissism, like all of these things. And at the same time, I had been given a vision right before we got married about this business, like everything, the entire blueprint for the business, not the business that I currently have, is a food and beverage business. When I met him, I went to work for his family. I helped them franchise their family business of more than 70 years at that time and make it a franchise. I managed their restaurant for about 3 years. Lot was at play. Now, mind you, I'm grieving this entire time and not knowing it. And we get married, narcissism's at play, but I got this vision right before we got married that I believe I'm supposed to be helping him with, right? Because it was around doing the same thing that I had already done in their family business. And so I thought that meant marry him, help him to do it. And so even though stuff was going crazy and left and all of the things and my spirit was like, girl, you know how crazy and messed up you was. So if they gonna act right, give them grace because God was so graceful with you. And mind you, he grew up Jehovah's Witness. He was Jehovah's Witness. And so I found myself that I kept compromising things that were not what I truly wanted. And a lot of it sometimes went against, because in the name of Christianity and being a good Christian wife and Proverbs 31 woman and all of these things, so I thought. And so what happened is I started like getting more and more, like my spirit was telling me one thing, but I was compromising. So then it just stopped talking to me. Oh, you ain't listening. Oh, you done forgot that I ain't here. And in that, as I was going through all of these things of distrust and all kinds of things, I started realizing, well, I'm not getting fed because I'm going to the hall with him, and nothing about it is feeding me. And so I decided, oh, I'm gonna stop doing that. I just made a decision. I'm no longer doing that. And I didn't know what I was gonna do. And then this couple that I was following on Instagram, I started seeing they had a marriage ministry. And I believed that it said living God's priorities. They said it said living our priorities. Found out that they were local, would start going to their church. And when I first got there, I realized when I went up to meet, there were a couple. When I went up to meet her, I said to her, I don't know who I am. I didn't even know that was going to come out of my mouth. And as I started unpacking and healing and going on that journey and started the path of divorcing and everything, I became his full-time caregiver. Then I'm like, Lord, how can I be the woman to divorce a man on his deathbed? So that just turned into a whole, just shredded everything. It was the final straw. And as I went on healing and unpacking that, I started to realize that really trying to maintain the status quo is what got me there. All of these things that I believed that I was supposed to be doing in the name of religion, Christianity, um, being a woman, and all of the things ultimately is what got me there. And I never wanted that to happen to another woman. Not one, not on my watch. And I wanted her, and I want her to understand that. And it's been a journey because there's been so many things. Because, and let me say this, spiritual warfare was at play in that marriage. And it revealed itself to me once he finally got out of the house. And I knew there was a presence. I just didn't know what it was. I knew it was something, but I didn't know what it was. And so because of that, I think it just, I mean, I know people stay too long. They deal with things that are oppressive, especially women. And I don't want to see that for anyone else. It's a lot. And I believe the Lord led me on this path because I needed me and me. And when I realized that, I took on my first life coach. And I started realizing, oh, I have been showing up this way for over 30 years for free, not knowing. And in that moment, I realized, oh, this is a profession. This is what I would do for free. It's the reason why I go in a bathroom and people tell me all their business. Feel safe like immediately. I didn't know all of these things about me. And so, like you, I want to be able to serve so that the women like you and I that have these missions, visions, dreams, goals, desires that we've placed somewhere else because that's what we believe we were supposed to do. No, you get to decide what you want and that you can have it to make the time and the space, have the energy and the capacity and the strength and the confidence to do those things. So I create safe spaces for women to be themselves so that they can live their own lives and create their freedom. That's why I do it.
I love that. Listen, I'm with it. I'm for it. Let's do it. And so I think part of why 30 Minutes of Power has stayed the course for 3 years is because I wanted to be an example to other women that just because you are committed to your husband, you're committed to a church, maybe you're committed to your children, you were you before they were there.
Ashe.
Before you was that man's wife or that church's teacher or those kids' mothers, you was you.
Yes. Yes.
And they not gonna learn how to be them until you learn how to be you.
And we know that study shows that it's a direct correlation on the health of your children, the health of the mother.
That's right.
Ashe. It also explains why I saw myself in you.
Yeah, I had to break free. I've been pregnant 7 times. I have 4 successful pregnancies, and I struggled with postpartum depression for about 7.5 years. And during that time, there was no light. I didn't see anything. I was on autopilot. And when COVID happened, I said, all right, if this is it, we gonna go out with a bang, boo boo. we we going out with a bang. All the things that I have put on the back burner, all the things I put on the shelf, we about to go do everything,
That's
everything. And I think when I get to the space where I start coasting, I start becoming super complacent about where I am. Like, oh, I've done all these things. I'm good enough. Like, is that why you did this though? To be good enough?
right.
Like, nah, like my intention is to be a mirror. I want to be a mirror for other women so they can see, hey, I don't have to compromise.
Absolutely.
I don't have to die to myself in
Yes.
order for something else to live. Like we can both live.
That part. That part.
We neither one of us got to know. And so I love that I have a second podcast that I co-host with my brother called the Godly Man's Perspective on Marriage podcast. And our conversations are all centered around helping men understand that you have a role to play in your wife's health, but it
Absolutely.
can only occur once you get well first.
Absolutely. I'm here for that because that's the other part of it, the mental and physical health challenge
Mm,
that ensued behind that. So it's a daily decision to show up fully. And so one of the things, staying in community and being supported is non-negotiable.
yep.
Non-negotiable. Absolutely. And I want to speak to the 3 minutes. It kept crossing my mind, the 3 years rather. That was the cycle that I also, 3 years completion. And so every 3 years it was like, on a job, all of those things. Not necessarily leaving it per se, but definitely pursuing to get more information to see if this is time, because that itch would show up. It's like same thing in that marriage. It was like, okay, 3 years, I think we're good. And then that fourth year about took me out, and that's when it was over. So there's something to be said, I believe, with that 3 years that Lord says, mm-hmm.
So I think you're probably the first human that's ever said out loud what I felt in my spirit that after those 3 years, like whatever it was that I was sent to do, I did it. And
Yep,
now it's time to go.
yep,
And
absolutely.
so I think the itch for me wasn't, and so that's what I was wrestling with this last 2 years before I left my job. I got challenged by a success coach, and she was like, God is not going to bless something that you're running away from, but he will bless something that you're called to.
Ashe.
And I was like, okay. So then I said, what am I being called to? And if I don't know what I'm being called to, then I need to stay. And so that's where I was. I was in this, okay, what do I feel led to? What do I feel called to? And I was like, duh, girl, you've been writing for 3 years. 3 years. Remember what happens at 3? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, this 30. Oh, you know what? I got to go. It's like you're not gonna finish out the school year? No,
Huh.
no.
Just And it's
It's
something to be
January.
said about that powerful prayer room, because when I became disconnected and I started hearing that voice again, I would call it either a war room or prayer room, depending on what was happening. And I created those pastors that walked me through and shepherded me through all of that. Um, they had a prayer room. And when I saw that, I was like, I need, I need to create this. And it's where I could hear that voice again. It was under the stairs. It was in the middle of the house. You couldn't hear a thing in there. So it was no doubt that God was speaking.
Mm,
And so the other thing that happened, just to close out the story a little bit, I filed for divorce. I divorced him in 30 days because it was time. I had been waiting on the sign from God. And when it came, I was on it. And I was praying and I was like, Lord, I still see myself as an entrepreneur.
mm,
I did that vision. I was doing the thing in that marriage, working a full-time job, doing the business, like all of the things. And I gave him the business and the divorce
mm,
that I could leave with what I came with.
mm,
We wouldn't have no misunderstandings about that. And I said, Lord, I still see myself as an entrepreneur. And Spirit said, I said, I said something about the vision, and the Spirit said, this is what I don't know what I said, but I know what the Spirit said clearly. If the vision had been for him, I would have given it to him. It was for you.
mm,
In that moment, I realized I had stayed in that marriage all that time because of that vision I'd been given before we got married, because I thought I was supposed to be helping him.
mm,
And it like took me out because I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And when I realized, oh, it's for me, you mean I get to do what I want? I didn't have to be compromising and doing all of these things, that it's my, I didn't know what to do with myself. And so I have another business. It's called the Midwest Way. The brand tagline for that is "Ain't no way like the Midwest Way." And our
mm,
mission and our vision is around being the heart, hands, and feet of Jesus, to be a bridge to connect people to random acts of love, information, and resources, one heart at a time. So
mm.
we are for profit with nonprofit tendencies. And
Right.
in the midst of pursuing that, Disruptor Coaching was born.
Mm.
So we're going to stand Disruptor Coaching up as a coaching agency to serve those women. Miss, I got time for everything except myself. And then once we do that, we're going to go off and do Midwest Way.
I
Cool.
love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh,
Yeah.
this has been fun.
This has been fun. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your question. As you can see, I'm still figuring out how to share that story. So I'm sure, Jory, you're going to help me with that at some point.
Listen, I have a wonderful way for you to share this story, for it to, open up doors, set you up as the expert and the go-to person for all things disruption.
Yeah.
So, you should get on my calendar too. I'm just saying. Yeah, I'm saying. Just
It is already written down. That's not,
hey,
I
let's
need to
go.
get on your podcast. Do you accept guests on the podcast?
Yes, I do have a guest on the podcast. I'm taking a little hiatus. The kids is out of school, so I batched recorded the last 3 months. So I have podcasts that take me into September. But absolutely, yeah. When we get back on the interview train, I would love to have you come up on the show.
I
It'd be an
love
honor.
it. Would be an honor. It's been an honor. It's been an honor, y'all. Let me just check for the good of the order, make sure we ain't leaving people hanging. All righty. I don't see anyone in the chat this lovely Sunday evening. Jori, anything else before we go that maybe I did not ask that you want to share?
No, I don't think so. I think I feel complete.
I am complete. Well, y'all know what we do around here, Disruptor Coaching. If anything about this podcast that you've enjoyed, you want to like, share, and subscribe, it will be up in about 5 more minutes or less. You can share it. It's been so rich. Thank you, Jori. And you all know, until next time, take good care.